watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome to Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin and this is the programme where you can have your property related questions answered by our team of property experts. And joining me today is Azid Gungah, CEO of Quiddity Group. Welcome to you.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for having me.
Now, it's your first time on the show, so we'll try and be gentle with you and not cause you any grief.
It'll be appreciated.
Okay. And joining Azid is Trevor Leggett via Zoom, founder of Leggett Immobilier, French property experts. Welcome to you, Trevor.
Yeah, hi, Stephen. Good to be on the show.
Okay, Azid, your first question. I live in a block of 250 apartments and a number of the owners are keen to take management of the block away from the original developers. I understand that this is possible if the majority of owners wish it to be so, but we have a problem with this. The developer says he cannot give us the names and addresses of the other owners, many of which reside overseas, as this would contravene data protection regulations. Has the panel any suggestions on how we may progress our interest in changing the block's management? Well, good luck with that one.
I know that's a tough one to start with. So I think the challenge with right to manage is, is finding. So the right to manage is basically where tenants or leaseholders can have the right to take over the management of the block themselves. So to do that, you need to be able to get 51% of the total. So in your case, 250. So you need 126 people owning those blocks to agree to take over the management, and then in effect you kick out the current management.
Then you give the developer notice or whatever.
You give not the developer, the
or,
management
well,
agent.
the freeholder.
Yeah. Or the managing agent who then works on behalf of the freeholder. The challenge is, as your question refers to, is finding out who those 126 people are, and if they are, there's another layer to it. If they are abroad, it becomes even harder. In fact, I've actually had a similar situation, not on such a bigger scale, but we were working on a development of about 30. So we only needed 16 people. And you'd think going around, so we tried going around putting letters through the door. Tenants don't give it to the landlords. We've tried, writing to them. So one of the ways that I would say is a potential avenue to do that would be to look at land registry. So and order the title of register for each of these blocks. But then that costs you a bit of money.
Well, you could get a copy of the title just as a block, couldn't you? Would that give you the information?
The challenge with the block, it won't tell you the individual owners. So you will need to get each title for each block, each apartment. So you need 126, well, 125, excluding the person who owns it, presumably. And that's a very convoluted way. Now the challenge is if it's in a shell company owned by companies abroad, it becomes even harder. So unfortunately, it's not an easy way of doing this. I would say the two avenues I would do is start with knocking on the doors and asking how many people own within, and try and get a gauge of our 125. Can you
see how close you can get?
Can you reach that? Yeah. Then the next layer would be go to land registry and pay, I think it's £3.50 for each title document. So it's not great loads of money, but you'll still incur
quite time consuming as well.
Very time consuming. And then the third layer is, once you write to these landlords, are they willing to then engage? So then you've got that layer,
which is the usual problem. They're all willing to engage until it costs a bit of money.
Absolutely. And also, to be honest, if they've never had a cause for concern, they might not want to.
If they're getting their rent or whatever, then
and if they're abroad and if they are rich, wealthy people, so you're probably not going to get them to change.
Yes, I know. I have seen in the past over the years where people have been to court and asked for a waiver against the Data Protection Act to get this information because it's of beneficial interest to the development as a whole. But you see, even that can be quite a process these days, can't it? And be quite expensive too, with lawyers and everything else. Okay, well, Azid, thank you for that. That's some good advice there, and let's hope our viewer has some luck in getting that information. Okay, Trevor, welcome to you, and let's give you your first question. I'd quite like to purchase an apartment or small chalet in a French Alps ski resort. However, I have two concerns. I know that in similar resorts here in the UK and in particular Scotland, there are sometimes restrictions on the length of occupancy in a property during any one year. Am I likely to find similar restrictions in French ski resorts? Secondly, would the service charges for a ski resort property carry premiums, for example, for road snow clearance and the cost of special equipment to deal with the snow? Or would this normally be covered by the local authority?
Well, it depends where the property is, really. I mean, if it's in a zone, a holiday zone, so if it was a leaseback property, then of course it's obviously been built as to be let to holiday makers, in which case you can't live in it all year round. In all honesty, there's not a lot of people that check it, and there is an awful lot of people that do live in properties they're not supposed to all year round. Technically speaking, no, you can't, and you can't sell it as such. That's the key thing, really, is you can't sell it as a permanent residence because it isn't one. Your estate agent or your developer will tell you that. Obviously, the tax breaks are only available to properties that are built to let for holiday letting. So leaseback properties, for example, have a management company looking after them. The management company will allocate you weeks that you book yourself in your property. But then if you're buying that kind of property for investment, you want the rental income anyway. You don't really want to be living in it all year round. So that, if you want a property to live in, you're going to buy a residential property that's outside of that type of scheme. There are several different schemes at the moment. You've got Loire Pinel as well. So if you're renting it out, even on a permanent basis, you can still get tax advantages. There's several things, but you really need to speak to a French fiscaliste before you go ahead with any kind of investment in France. Really, somebody that knows what they're talking about. We work with a couple of different companies that actually will just give you a once over of what you want to buy, what you want to achieve from it, and where you should go and how you should set it up. You need to do all that groundwork first, really, before going out and buying anything.
So, Trevor, what exactly is a French fiscalist?
Right, a tax lawyer, so a tax specialist. So basically, you've either got a gestionnaire de patrimoine, which is a wealth manager, or you've got a fiscaliste, an avocat en droit fiscal, which is a tax lawyer. Either of which can help you. A good wealth manager should be able to help you as well. And if it's too much for him, he'll point you to a lawyer when he needs to. So for setting up companies or corporate structures that you may need to put in place to buy a property, he will put you in the right direction. So a good wealth manager is useful. Some of the big accountancy firms will have the wealth managers in-house as well, but obviously the fees are quite a lot higher.
Okay, Trevor, thank you. Got that. What's at this time is supply and demand like in ski resorts at the moment? How is the market there?
At the moment, it's really hard to find anything that we're selling properties as fast as we can list them at the moment. It is the big problem at the moment, is stock. The market is on fire, and it's crazy, considering that this season is the first proper season when people have been able to get back on the mountains, getting them skiing. They've only been out there for a few weeks, and it's absolutely flat out. We've never seen anything like it. Again, this is the busiest we've ever been, and we're working with probably less stock than we ever have done, although we've got more than most of our competitors. It's a really, really busy time. I don't know how long it can go on for, but interest rates at the moment are still really, really low, which is fueling it. I mean, you can still borrow at less than 1%, fixed for 15, 20 years. Difficult to say no to those kind of deals, really.
I see. What would you advise someone to do in order to secure a good property in that case?
Well, the majority of serious buyers in the Alps, in all honesty, know what resort they want to be in and know exactly what they're looking for. And I think by now they realise that they've got to move fast. So if they see something they like, they're jumping on a plane, they're coming out and seeing it and getting in there. And I think most people are aware of how hot the market is. So and especially those who have been looking for a couple of years and have probably missed a few occasions to buy something because they've been too slow. It's like that everywhere at the moment, because traditionally in these rural areas, whether it was ski resorts or in rural areas in the countryside for that matter, the majority of sales of bigger homes were always sold to international buyers. But now that's not the case. It's definitely the French buyers that are buying the majority of these homes. So the competition is pretty stiff.
What are the service charges likely to be in this kind of apartment?
It depends on the facilities. Some of the buildings may have swimming pools. They may have, some may have no facilities at all. They've just got a garage and common areas to look after. It depends on the development. You can't really throw a figure at it. It's the same as it is in the UK.
Thank you, Trevor. And anything further you think buyers should consider when purchasing a property of this type?
Well, it depends if it's chalets or apartments, because it's a very different thing between apartments and chalets. Obviously, chalets are individual residential dwellings on their own. Apartments obviously have common areas and obviously more charges. The majority of the chalet, depending on where they are, most of our clients seem to let them when they're not there, obviously, because the cost is so high and the revenues, the bigger chalets that the ski in, ski out can be 50, 60,000 euros a week. It's considerable income, but then they're paying millions for the chalet. So there are people that have been doing it for years and have sort of started off with a small chalet and gradually worked their way up to something much bigger. So they've gained experience over the years, and a lot of those clients have been in the Alps and seen, they've had a property in the Alps all their lives. I mean, it's an age-old tradition of people's winter homes up in the mountains, and I think it's not about to change. In actual fact, if anything, COVID strengthened it because people want to go somewhere where they can drive there.
There we are. That's all we've got time for in this half of the show. So join me after the break and we'll be asking Azid and Trevor even more of your questions.
You are watching Property TV. You are watching Property TV.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Property Question Time. I'm joined by Azid Gungah and Trevor Leggett. So we'll move on, Azid, to your second question. I've tried twice now to obtain a mortgage on a flat in a block of flats that's a number of commercial units on the ground floor of the premises. This was given in both cases as the reason a mortgage was refused, but they would not comment further. What is the reason for this reluctance to mortgage apartments where mixed use is in the same building? I've never got that one either.
I have to say that I find that quite peculiar that the person's not able to secure a mortgage on that. There are a number of reasons why certain mortgage companies will not let or mortgage properties. One being, for example, if in the block at the bottom there's a takeaway shops or kind of high risk type of fire safety type of businesses. I've had one personally 15 years ago, there was a kebab shop 3 rows down, not even below the flat, and they refused it. So certain lenders have certain requirements that they don't want to take that risk on.
Right.
So that would be one, kind of the noisy, if it's like a nightclub very close by to it. So they're talking about, well, is the attic going to devalue? Somebody else will come afterwards and think, I don't really want to be living next to a nightclub. So that could be one of the reasons. Another reason I can think of would be height. There's a height restriction. Some lenders don't want to go above a certain amount of stories. And then they will insist that depending on the level of floors, that there are lifts in place, et cetera, et cetera. So that could be another reason why mortgage has been declined. Third one I can think of is cladding. As we all know now, the cladding issue post Grenfell, that could be an issue. Yes, they might not be all over the actual block, but there might be some areas of the block that could have some cladding.
The shop fitted fronts.
The shop fitted, correct.
Gotcha.
So that could be kind of almost the 3 reasons why I can think of right now that mortgage has been denied. Having said that, there's good news. I think, actually, I'm pretty sure with the right broker and the right advice, your viewer will be able to find somebody who will find a mortgage for that.
Okay. Do you know what? You've hit on something there that we hear time and time again. And one of the key things in the property industry, use your professionals. It works every time, doesn't it? But it is quite interesting. I've seen around here in this part of London, it has been an issue for some people where there's been mixed use underneath the development. But what I find odd about that is that your planning authority will insist that there is this mixed use as a sort of service to the residents. They'll say, you can't build a block of flats without the infrastructure to live, you know, the Tesco's, the laundrette, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
But there we are. Okay, well, Azid, thank you for your answer on that one. Trevor, we're going to come to you again now. Post-Brexit, visa requirements have changed in the main for UK citizens wishing to relocate and buy property in France. Could I ask the experts if there are specialist firms who would handle any visa applications for me, and whether I would find them in the UK or whether I should go to France to find these people as specialists?
No, I mean, frankly, I mean, it's easy enough to get visas. It's not a problem. It's all about being able to support yourself financially. So as long as you can, as long as you've got your pension, and it's not a huge requirement, they're not asking for a lot of money. Yeah, the threshold is 750 quid a month. So it's not particularly difficult to get yourself a work permit. And obviously, they don't have any health requirements either, really. I mean, they'll take you on the CMU. It's pretty straightforward. It just means you have to declare yourself resident and pay your taxes in France. Of course, a lot of people don't want to do that. If they don't, then they're only allowed a 3-month visa. If not, they've got to apply for a longer one. And that is the difficult bit. That's the pain for a lot of people, is before they were allowed 180 days in a straight run without asking for anything. And now they're not. So, you know, a lot of people are deciding to take up French residency. Taxes are probably cheaper for a lot of people in France, but of course death duties are obviously higher, a lot higher. So that's what stops a few people.
Thank you very much, Trevor. That's very informative as usual. Thank you very much indeed. So that's all we've got time for today in this show. So thank you to Azid and Trevor for giving their answers and their valuable information to us. Look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Stephen Galpin. Join me again on Property Question Time.